Thank you very much for allowing me to come before you, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to come and speak to you. My name is Priscilla Shumba, and I'm honored to be a part of this event. Now, the question that I want to help you to answer today, or at least to help you to begin thinking about in a different way today, is what do you do when you're in a market with a low cost to entry? That's the question that we're faced with today globally. If we look at the landscape, we can see that I understand that a lot of you are entrepreneurs with catering companies, or you're part of a hospitality industry, in catering specifically, or in the food industry. We understand that today, any person with a phone and a social media account with a little bit of a passion for food is essentially competition, is our competition, because the customer doesn't care about the name, doesn't care so much about where the food is coming from or where the catering is coming from. The customer cares about the product, the outcome. So in a marketplace where there's a low cost to entry and anybody essentially can enter into that marketplace, and believe me, I humbly say this because as a writer, any person with a passion for writing can enter into the marketplace, and that person competes with you for the attention of customers. Everything from a high school student. So when I talk about a marketplace that has a low cost to entry, I understand the dynamics. Even though I'm in a different market, I understand the dynamics of being in such a situation. So what happens is the customer doesn't care who is selling. The customer cares about the outcome. And so it becomes a marketplace where all the power, the bargaining power to speak of, is with the customer. And a lot of times we begin as business owners, as entrepreneurs, to compete on price. And it becomes what they call a race to the bottom. Everybody's cutting prices lower, 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 lower to attract customers. And it becomes, you literally discount yourself out of business, if that makes sense. You continue going low because the competition has gone low, and then the competition goes lower, and at the end of it, there's no profit or very little profit in doing what we're doing, and we discount ourselves out of business. Try and keep this talk a little bit academic, a little bit business academic, as well as practical. I'll try to be as practical as possible. Forgive me if my natural tendencies to be academic, but I'll try to be as practical as possible. Now, this is the market that we're faced with. Now, what do we do in such a market? We look at who has the power, and we've identified that the power in this case in a crowded marketplace is with the customer. So that alone determines our strategy. It determines the direction of our strategy. Where are we looking for answers? If we're looking for answers from the competition and we're looking at what is the competition doing, and then we're doing what the competition is doing, we're trying to do it a little bit better, then our focus is in the wrong place. Our focus now should be on understanding the customer, because that is where the power is. Point number one, I think it's easy for people to digest information when it comes in point form. So I'll say my point number one is switch your attention from competition to the customer. Now, how exactly do we do that? Well, first of all, we want to understand our existing customer. We want to truly understand our existing customer. We want to understand their lifestyle, and we want to understand how they make buying decisions. So in this case, we're looking at the data. It's interesting because a lot of times the people we think are really our customer tend really not to be our customer in some cases. And it's not always easy to see that really unless we're tracking the data. We're tracking who is buying, when are they buying, how are they buying, and doing the research on what are the commonalities in these customers. If we look at Pareto's principle, we understand that 80% of our revenue will come from 20% of our customers. So we want to understand, where is that 20%? Who is that 20%? How do they live their life? How do they make buying decisions? When do they buy? What kind of things do they buy? How frequently do they buy? We really truly want to understand the data behind our existing customer. Why? So that we do more of what's working and less of what's not working. Because a lot of times, when our focus has always been on the competition, we end up with a wide variety of offerings because we're matching all the things that we think the competitor is getting our customer based on. So, for example, if we look in the catering space, we may be looking at, if we started out maybe just looking at baking, now that our competitors offering grilled meats, we too are now offering grilled meats on top of baking. And if our customer is now offering fine dining, and we see as if they're getting a lot of customers because of fine dining, now we're also offering fine dining. And we end up with a whole bunch of offerings which pull our attention and energy in so many different areas and don't allow us to focus on the reason why people are coming to us. Because I believe there's a speaker that's going to speak on branding, an excellent speaker. So I won't speak so much on branding because either that's already been covered or that's going to be covered. But I'll just say this: whatever we believe our brand is created when our concept for our business is validated by our customers. So what do I mean by that? I mean that we have a concept of who we are and we put it out into the world. This is who Priscilla's catering company is. This is my vision. This is my idea of what I believe my company is about. That it's only when customers come in and they experience the vision that I've created and form their own opinion of what they think I'm about, that a brand is created. So as you can tell, there's got to be an alignment, but the alignment truly comes from the customer syncing with what I've put out there, and then that becomes the brand. It may not be what I thought the brand was going to be, but whatever the customer validates, that becomes the brand of what I've put out there. And anyway, that's as much as I'll say about branding. But back to the idea that we end up creating all these things because our focus is on the competition and things that pull us in different directions, energy-wise, resource-wise, time-wise, and we don't become experts of what customers are coming to us for. Because the customer has already identified why we are different from the competition. And it's similar to us when we go shopping for just about anything. If you go down a street, there's shoes in every shop. If you go down a certain street, there's bread in just about every single supermarket of almost about the same price. But there's a reason that you choose a specific kind of bread. As a customer, you have identified what differentiates that particular bread from all the other types of bread that are being offered in every single shop, even at the same price. And that differentiation is what we need to understand. Why is the customer coming to us? What do they want? And we need to give them more of what they want. Point one has been we understand our existing customer. Point two is we want to understand our ideal customer. This may or may not be the same thing. So our existing customers, the customers that we already have, we're understanding what they're about, how they live, what they want more of. So we're understanding, do they celebrate birthdays? How do they celebrate birthdays? We're looking at, do they celebrate Valentine's? Are they interested? So that we know that when Valentine's comes around, is it worth it for us to put money into a Valentine's dinner or extravaganza? Does that meet what our existing client would want? Because there's no point if your existing customer is not interested in Valentine's. There's no point for the business to putting up a Valentine's extravaganza. It's a waste of resources because that's not something that your ideal client is interested in. And it doesn't matter even if you have it, you're not going to attract your ideal customer. So you're going to be going out there to look for a separate group of customers to attend your Valentine's extravaganza. which is fine. But being aware of that and being aware of what it's going to require to bring in a customer that currently isn't your customer is what is important when you're planning and strategizing. But that's why I say, back to point one, you have your existing customer, and point two, you have your ideal customer. Who would value what you offer the most? And that is the person that we want to be our ideal customer. For example, if part of our strategy is to go after the birthday market and to do everything that is associated with providing an amazing, unforgettable, life changing memory that will be talked about for the rest of a person's life around birthdays, then we're looking for our ideal client is someone who would absolutely appreciate that kind of thing. And who is that person? How do they live their life? How will we find them? Where will we find them? How will they get to know about what we provide? And how can we make sure that what we are offering is exactly what that person values very highly? I think we begin to see that having a birthday offering and taking it to a client that doesn't value birthdays is a waste of time, is a waste of resources, is a waste of energy. Because the amount of energy it will take you to try to even convince that person to come and purchase the smallest aspect of your offer is wasted time. It's more important to go to people who highly value your offer that you have created and perfected and pitch your offer to those particular people. That's the best use of an entrepreneur's time. And that's the way that we want to use strategy. I think we, as entrepreneurs, we've all experienced this, where you create something and you take it to the wrong customer. And then you spend a lot of time trying to convince this customer that this is what they want. And maybe you succeed, but they are not going to be very happy because you almost have to strong arm them and be on their case before they buy, which is never the experience you want for your customer, because that customer will never be a raving customer, a customer who says, I'm very satisfied. And what you want is a raving customer who goes around and tells every person that they know about their experience with your brand. And not that you hounded them to the point that they eventually gave in to purchasing your services, which they really didn't need and therefore will not really value. Even if your service is $1 million service, they will not really value it because they didn't want it to begin with. So that's the importance of finding who our ideal customer is based on the strategy that we've set in place of who it is that we're going to go after. The person who values what we offer the most. Now, point three, I've already alluded to a little bit, but the idea that it's important to niche down, however you wish to say it, but it's important to have an area of focus that you become a master at. I think that's the advice in business today, only because, like I said, globally, every industry is finding an influx of entrepreneurs who are going into it. So it becomes difficult to compete in a broad space. It's easier, especially when you're of a certain size. There are certain companies, because of their size, they have built up over time the kind of customer base and loyalty and brand awareness and brand equity that allows them to be more general. And because of who they are and people identifying who they are, they can be broad. For example, if we talked about Nike, everybody knows Nike. That's how big Nike is, and everybody understands what the brand stands for and the quality that is associated with their brand. So if Nike went from selling sneakers and tennis shoes and decided to sell, I don't know, fluffy toys, because it's Nike, they can be that broad and people would actually buy because they see Nike, they know the brand, they're aware of it, they associate it with a certain quality of products, and they may very well buy it. But when you're a business that doesn't have that kind of reach and that kind of being known, it's better to focus on a niche market, a small area of focus where you can be known, where you can build brand equity, where people can say in one sentence, if I'm looking for a person who does Italian bread, that's the company that does Italian bread. As a small company, that's the starting point. Having a niche where people can say, oh, if you're looking for everything chocolate, that's the company that you're looking for. You don't want to be Italian bread, chocolate, ribs, Chinese food, because being a generalist has certain disadvantages. The obvious of which, as a small business, it takes your time to be focused on so many different aspects. It takes a lot of energy to manage product fulfillment of so many variations of different things. The other thing is that people, when they pay, and they pay a company that does everything, they don't expect to pay a lot. If you think about global organizations like Walmart or Target, where you enter and you can find just about anything that you want in there, people don't expect to pay a lot because there is just about anything and everything. It's just like a mishmash. And so those kind of places, people expect to pay a reasonable low fee. And that's their strategy. And that's okay. They are big organizations and they can afford to have low margins, low profit margins, in order to attract more people and to sell greater volumes. That's okay. That's their strategy. But as a small business, you don't want to have that kind of a strategy where your margins are so low and you're doing everything all the time. As the entrepreneur, as the small business team, it's easy to get burnt out. But I almost hear your hesitation, and I know it because as an entrepreneur, I've had it myself. The problem with when we decide to niche down is we're afraid of losing the customers, the few. If we really look at the data on how many of customers are actually coming to buy these things, we'll find that they're very, very few. But we may be afraid to lose those very few and the income that comes with those very few. So this is what I would suggest. When you niche down, it's not to say that if you have a customer that comes and requests something specifically, you turn them away. That's not the idea behind niching down. You never turn away a customer. If that's what they want, you provide what they want. But you also don't put your entire focus on providing something that two people very rarely here and there come and purchase. You put your focus on the niche that you have decided based on the data of what your customer wants from you. As they say, the riches are in the niches or in the niches, which basically just means that when you enter into a place that specializes in something, naturally, from the customer's perspective, because everything we're doing is from the customer's perspective, naturally the customer expects to pay more. They put more value on whatever it is that they're going to buy because they identify that this company specializes in this thing. And because they specialize in this thing, the customer expects a high quality product and expects to pay fairly to experience a high quality product. The also other benefit of niching is it allows you and your team to really become world class at doing something. Back to the question of what do you want to be known for? If we look at the example of McDonald's, McDonald's is considered the most successful small business in the world. Yes, I say small business because the McDonald's model is a small business model. Yes, they've got many franchises and it's now a global business that just about everybody knows about. But the McDonald's is a small business concept that has been franchised. They are referred to as small business done right. And why they refer to as small business done right is because you understand as a customer what it is that you get from McDonald's. If you want fast food, if you want convenience, you don't go to McDonald's because you want succulent ribs. If you want succulent ribs, you go elsewhere. You don't go to McDonald's because you expect you can change how you want something on the menu and a waiter is going to come out, because that's not the McDonald's model. McDonald's is low cost, convenient, everything they do is around that strategy of being low cost and of being convenient, and of being fast. If you look even at their locations are to be convenient. Everywhere where they are in the world is a spot of convenience, is a location of convenience, which is why a lot of people say McDonald's is in the business of real estate because they are everywhere where the real estate is prime. But back to how important the strategy is. Once you have your strategy, it defines everything that you're going to do. So let's go back to the McDonald's example. Low cost, fast, and convenient. Whatever is going to be on their menu is going to match those three criteria. Wherever their stores are going to match those three criteria. However, their processes and systems are going to match those three criteria. And because they are so well defined in their strategy, the competition is almost a non-issue in the mind of the consumer. Back to where it matters, because the consumer is what is putting money in your pocket. They're not thinking, oh, now people down the road are making ribs and people seem to really love ribs, so we should probably start making ribs. Why? Ribs are not low cost, they're not fast, and they're not convenient. So they're not going to do that. They're going to stick to what their customer wants. And even as they switch things up within how customers are changing and their tastes are changing, and they now want low sugar and low fat and more nutritious, still the strategy remains the same: low cost, convenient, and fast. And so no matter who you are, wherever you are, if you're looking for low cost, convenient, and fast, you'll see McDonald's. That's how well executed their strategy is. It's the direction, it's the driver. It's the thing that qualifies what should be done and what should not be done. So that in the mind of the consumer, it's very clear who McDonald's is. It's not Domino's. It's not Spurs. It's not Chinese food. Even though all those other things do make money. For the person who is the ideal customer of McDonald's, McDonald's is the perfect answer to what they are looking for. And that is low cost, convenient, and fast. Now, point number 4 is about the business model aspect of our strategy. You may have the right idea, but the wrong vehicle for your idea. How to bring it to your customer. And the best way to think about the business model is just to simplify it. Think about your customer journey. Once again, our focus is on the customer. How do customers experience you from the point of one, when they get to know about you, the point of when they engage with who your organization is, to the point of which they decide to buy, and then after they buy, if they become loyal to your brand. I'm basically speaking to the marketing funnel, the experience of your customer. For a long time, it was about the beauty of a place, the storefront. And we've learned since the pandemic globally, we've learned that the storefront is not as important as it used to be. Not that it's not totally important. Back again to what is your strategy? If that is your strategy, then it's important because you've identified that it matters to your ideal customer. It's more important for you to be where your customer is than to try and move your customer from where they are to come to you. Now, applying that now to the idea you have and understanding what is the best vehicle that will put me in front of my customer rather than waiting for my customer to come to me is the question that we want to answer with our business model. So, for example, if it's food delivery, perhaps people don't necessarily want to be in a restaurant. Perhaps they prefer to enjoy the type of food you provide at a sports game. Then it's important for your services to be provided at the sports game. As entrepreneurs, sometimes we fall in love with our ideal, with our vision, and we don't really pay attention to what it is that the customer wants. But perhaps your customer who enjoys the kind of food that you provide wants to consume your food at a soccer game. Then, based on our strategy that looks at what does my customer want, it's more important for us to be at the soccer game than it is for us to be sitting in a restaurant trying to bring our customer from a soccer game into a restaurant. Because from experience, I think a lot of entrepreneurs will know this, how difficult it is to try and move a customer from where they are to where you are. It's easier to place yourself in front of a customer wherever they are and offer them your service. If they are your ideal clients, there's a higher chance of you making the sale in that scenario. So break all the rules, break all the rules, and follow what it is that your customer wants. If your customer prefers pop up, where one week you're here, one week you're there, but you're following where your customer is, then do that, because the customer is the one that is putting money in your pocket. It's important to do what the customer wants. Now, point 5 is the offer. We can't forget the offer when we're looking at our strategy. You know, as an entrepreneur and early in entrepreneurship, I always say if something is not working, go back. Don't take it as a personal attack on your ability to do or your ability to sell or your ability as a team leader or as a business leader, but rather take it as an opportunity to solve problems and to understand what is the problem. So, like I said, the first 2 points we're looking at who is our ideal customer. Maybe we thought it was someone who it was not. So, if something isn't working, let's go back and really understand who our customer is. Then maybe our niche is not defined. People don't know who we are and what we stand for. Okay, let's go and define exactly who it is that we are and what we want people to know us for. Or maybe, like we talked about in the business model, maybe we have the right idea, but the wrong model for bringing it to our customer. Let's go back and look at how are we reaching our customer and our customer journey. And then I would say, in this point, let's look at our offer. How good is our offer? Let's look at it objectively. And if we can't be objective about it, then maybe we need to get outside eyes that come in and look at how good is our offer. Because as people, we fall in love with the things we create. We think we create amazing things. And yet we need that feedback. It's very important, even the negative feedback, because it's telling us something that we didn't know. We all have blind areas, things that we don't see. And we need feedback to understand what is it that we're not seeing, that we need to see. Because as an entrepreneur, the very worst thing is to be surprised. You need to have that feedback that prevents you from being surprised. So, how good is what we're offering? Objectively, is this thing that we're offering world class? Why do I say world class? Because our customer today is online, on a phone, looking at the food created by the top chefs or the top restaurants or the top designers or the top writers, whatever industry it is. Our consumer today is wherever they are. If they have a phone and they have internet access, they are consuming what people who are considered industry leaders globally are producing and are creating. And so in their mind, they're being programmed for that world class. So it doesn't matter where you are. The customer has an expectation of what it is that makes excellent food, what it is that makes excellent service. And so we have to begin to look at our offer, not only as local, but as local that can compete globally. Look at our offer objectively. Where can we improve it? How can we make it better? Where does it need changes? Where do we need to train more, to improve more, so that we produce something that is world class? Something that when a customer pays you, whatever amount you charge, they happily pay you that, because what they receive matches what they've been programmed as being excellent. It's funny because you may find that people buy something and then they say, oh, it's not good enough. And it's based on something that they've never even tasted, something they saw online. How do they know it's not good enough? They don't know, because they've been programmed in their mind to say, well, if it doesn't look like this, if it doesn't have this, then it can't possibly be good. It can't possibly be world class. So we have to understand the mind of today's consumer when we're looking at our offer and make sure that we're creating something that is world class. That when we go and we sell it, the product is not in question. What is in question is maybe our ability as an entrepreneur to identify our market, to niche our market, to have a strategy that we execute consistently and in all areas of our business, other business related things, not related to our offer. Now, my final point is about making the competition a non-issue in the mind of consumer. Today's consumer expects to receive value before they even exchange their own currency value. And what does that mean? That means we have to prime the customer to buy. We not only have to sell transactional, we have to give them something, give them something some more, and give them something some more before they gladly exchange their currency. For those of you who love to read about entrepreneurship and marketing, which I believe every entrepreneur should take themselves or consider themselves as a marketer first before even whatever they do, whatever they sell. Consider yourself a marketer first. And there's a great book by a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. It's called Jab, 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 Uppercut. The basis of that book is the idea that today's customer expects to receive before they even exchange anything in terms of currency for what you're offering. So you have to think to yourself, based on what you do, how can you offer value to your customer? How can you prime your customer, position yourself in the mind of the customer as the solution to what they need when they have this specific need? It used to be enough to put a picture. It no longer is enough to just put a picture of what you sell, of what you make, and expect to attract a client or a customer. These days, people want to engage with your service before they actually even exchange value for your service. So with social media, videos of the preparations of an event, people want to see that. The background of the chef, the training of the chef, people want to see that. And as much as it is additional tasks to what we already do in business, it's important for positioning. Remember our initial question: what do you do when you're in a marketplace that has a low cost to entry, where any person with a passion and a smartphone is your competition? This is what you have to do. This is how strategic you have to be in order to make the competition a non-issue in the mind of your consumer. People want to see. They want to see more. They're not happy just eating food without knowing. They want to know more. They want to engage with the brands. They want to engage with the place where they shop. They'd love to know the story behind how this came to be, especially if you're an entrepreneur starting out or you're a small business starting out. They want to know the team behind this thing because, people do business with people they like. People buy from people they like. They don't care about company logos anymore or about company names or colors or this. They care about people, which is why the personal brand has taken off in social media and YouTube, as you've seen. Because when people know the chef and they know how the chef was trained, where the chef was trained, and they even know the way the chef talks, the way the chef laughs, the way the chef prepares things and their mottos and philosophies in preparing food, and the way the chef has given them a 2-minute or 1-minute tutorial on how to improve the way their burgers taste. Already, the next time that person is out looking for a place to dine, that chef is already top of mind. Why? Because that content that you've created on social media has positioned your restaurant or your catering business in the mind of that person. And some of you who cater weddings, when people come even from overseas and they're looking to find service providers, the service providers they've seen online on social media liked the personality. They liked what you created. They liked watching how you created. Those people will come straight for you without even you looking out for them because your content has primed them for that. Now, I hope I've given you some things to think about in terms of strategy. And I hope that as you go away from this event, you sit down and you begin to craft something that gives you direction on who you are, who you're trying to reach, how you're going to reach them, how you're going to be world class at them, and how you're going to create value for them before you ask for that transactional exchange, and position yourself in their mind. Thank you so much for your time. I hope it was well with your time. If you'd like to know a little bit more about me, you can go to my website www.reinventingperspectives.com, where I share information for entrepreneurs who are new and early, and profile various resources that will be of use to entrepreneurs. Thank you so much. And I wish you the best as you continue and prepare for 2022, a brighter and better 2022 in your businesses. Thank you.